Hey, today we'll add a runit bash function that will allow us to have cached console runs. So let's get to it. As you see, I'm in my dot files and I'll just add it to my existing shell profile. We have multiple shell profiles here for different functions, and we have one for a command line, normal runs. So we'll just add to it. There are already a bunch of functions here. So we'll just add a new function and let's call it runit for now. The one thing that it must have is a command that need to run. So let's just pass it that, and then it need to cache it. So it needs some markers for it. So we can have a command type for it, which will be, say, like if you're doing curl www.example.com, it will simply give you curl. We can do something like this for that, and then because there could be multiple curl commands and we can't just use the entire curl command as the file name marker, let's just create a checksum for it as well. Actually, just checksum would do. So we can have a simple base64 checksum for it. Piping into base64 should do. If you're on like Mac or some other OSs, like the command name might differ, but yeah, you'll have it if you're on a Linux based system or even on Windows. Let's just see if this thing is working fine, then we'll move ahead. I forgot the underscore. Let's just source it for now. And let's just pass what we talked about. So okay, this much is working fine. So now let's formulate a file name. So it's called cache file, and we can have a simple file name, something like this. Let's do one thing more. Let's have a customizable cache directory, which can be configured from outside. And let's have a default for it as well. So if it's being used without it, it doesn't fail. And let's make sure that if it doesn't already exist, we create it. And when we simply prefix it here, we'll have an absolute path for the checksum based cache file. Now, what will happen is, if this file already exists, then that means that we have run it and a cache should be present. So something like this, ensure that we have the cache. And if it's not there, that would mean we don't. So since we have a cache file which will have the output of it anyways, let's just make sure that we output at the end. And if the cache file doesn't already exist, we create it before printing out the output. So irrespective if there is a cache file already existing or we need to create one, we'll get the output. And you can simply use the eval function for this. and pipe it to the cache file. Let's place a marker here for our test that we'll be doing on the side, which will ensure that we already have a cached or not. We'll remove it later. Actually, in code we'll get this blurry thing as well. So yeah, there's the marker. But let's just run it again. Run pretty fast. Let's just go up. Yeah. So if you'll see, for the first one we have the marker. For the second one we don't. So there it goes.